presence of the Turangani Tuivunda. So let us welcome him with a huge round of applause, please. Thank you. The chief guest, Professor Rouse, Professor Subramani, Dr. Satish, out there, Mr. Maharaj, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Girmit Mela 2015.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chand. It's fascinating when I hear about something which happened 136 years ago. Because when I joined the Fiji School of Medicine 6 years ago, I discovered how old the Fiji School of Medicine was. And you may, in the crowd, you may not know that the Fiji School of Medicine, or the origins of the Fiji School of Medicine this year, are 130 years old. Very similar in age to the event that we're celebrating tonight. So, Nisa Bulavanaka Namaste, a very good evening. What a beautiful night here tonight in Saweni. No rain, lovely breeze, and so many smiling faces. I can say it's a real pleasure for me as Acting Vice Chancellor to share some of the celebration, some of the arts, some of the culture, some of the creativity, and some of the history that you're celebrating here tonight. I'll leave it to the wonderful scholar and writer, Professor Subramani, as our keynote speaker to provide the details, probably some of the history and some of the details of the celebration. But I would like to just make brief comments briefly in three themes. One I think is the importance of celebrating culture and diversity. And the second is recognizing the potential of Fiji and the Fiji National University. And third, just briefly understanding who we are in the world. Because the world of 2015 is certainly different to the world of 136 years ago. Although I've worked in many different places, including, for those who follow educational institutions, 2 years at Harvard University, I've often said that working as Dean of the Fiji School of Medicine is the best job I've ever had. You might say, why is that so? Well, I can say it's for someone who, like me, loves education and learning and students and young people. That's one thing. And also who is very concerned about health and education about health. And thirdly, who really enjoys meeting with and experiencing different cultures, then the Fiji School of Medicine was a perfect place. A great job. Fiji National University is similar. There's so much cultural diversity within the Fiji National University that I think we need to value and celebrate more than we probably do. People from many different cultures are present, and they deserve to be recognized and celebrated for what they bring to a country like Fiji and also to Fiji National University. In particular, their different cultures, their languages, their different religions, their different arts, they all contribute to the enjoyment which I think is Fiji and to the Fiji National University. The traditional owners of the land, the Itoke, living close by in a place like Saweni, to people who moved to Fiji in an unusual circumstance, I guess, 136 years ago. For all of you who have had an interest in history and anthropology or culture or the creative arts, I think Fiji is a fascinating place to be, and we should celebrate that perhaps more than we do. Secondly, I feel very privileged to be part of Fiji National University in this current stage in the history of Fiji and also the university. Being Acting Vice Chancellor in one of the most important post-secondary education institutions in the entire Pacific region is a real privilege to me. I thoroughly enjoy it. It's got many challenges, but there's some fantastic staff and wonderful students who are part of the Fiji National University. So many people with different and diverse interests, so many creative people, and so many wonderful students. At Fiji National University, one can study anything virtually from certificate 2 through to now a PhD in so many different areas. The descendants of the traditional owners of the land in which we are standing are now studying in places like Fiji National University with the descendants of people who moved from India 136 years ago. I can tell you, having experienced it in an enjoyable way some of the discussions between the students, they share the same dreams and aspirations. They celebrate success together. They groan about the tough lecturers, some who are here today perhaps. But they are really the future of the great country of Fiji, certainly as I understand it and know it. These young people, with their dreams and their aspirations, should be encouraged to dream large and to look forward to a wonderful Fiji in the future. Finally, I've often said that Fijians, regardless of their ethnicity, underestimate the contribution they have made to the Pacific region. In the health area, it's quite substantial. The Fiji National University has a school of medicine which is 130 years old and which has trained so many doctors and now nurses and pharmacists, and dentists who work across the Pacific. And sometimes I think Fiji underestimates the contribution it's made to the region. Fiji is a remarkable place in the world. It's a remarkable place which has a fascinating history and which brings, I guess, us together on the 14th of May 2015 to the Girmit Mela, where we're helping to celebrate that history. To me, it's a very exciting time. As Mr. Chan mentioned, I come from an interesting personal background. My father was initially a farmer, and then when he moved to the big city of Perth, he became a truck driver who worked for the local government authority. I proudly say I was the only child in my family. I had two sisters and one brother. I was the only child who finished high school. My brothers and sisters didn't finish high school. So I was the only child who finished high school. I was the only child who went to university. And I suspect right across Fiji there will be many families who share that same experience. But I was very supported by my family, my father, and managed to go to university, do a bachelor's, do a PhD, and now work in an interesting position in Fiji. But sometimes I think we should celebrate and remember where we came from and enjoy the life experience that we have. So, in summary, it's a pleasure for me to be here. I really enjoy Fiji. I've been here 6 years, now long enough to apply for citizenship, which I intend to do, so I can have dual citizenship. But there are many wonderful people here in Fiji and who I see on a daily basis and who are part of the National University. Thank you for having me here tonight. I'm sure we'll have a great party over the next few days, but a big vanaka vakalevu to all of you.
Yes, at this Girmit celebration, because I'm probably one of the closest person you'll find to indenture. My father was indentured, brought to Fiji on the Ganges in 1912. He was from Kottayam in Kerala and was taken to work in Lambasa. The cane fields proved to be too harsh for him. He easily developed calluses on his feet. He could have come from a Namudri Brahmin clan. He read and wrote in Malayalam language and performed certain rituals and had caste mark on his forehead. All this, I, Fiji-born son, found quite quaint. His overseer was good to him. Seeing his condition, moved him to his bungalow to cook and also look after the garden. He was an exception to the story of oppression and brutality that has become attached to indenture. After Girmit was over, my father mysteriously disappeared from the scene for a period of time. He never told us where he had gone. When he returned from self-exile, he had a bit of an islander in him. From his songs, people knew which island he had gone to. He sang Ratuman songs, occasionally danced and clowned around. This was a strange transformation to a man who used to be quite stern and fastidious. Ratuma is where my father had disappeared, and I'm fond of telling my Ratuman friend and a fellow writer, Wilson Herniko, that he could be one of my cousins, as my father may have left a lot of cousins behind. My father was in demand at weddings as a sideline entertainer. When I accompanied him during these occasions, I used to feel quite embarrassed by his behavior. But I learned something about him that I didn't know before, the creative side of him. And some of the things I'm going to tell you tonight will not be found in history books. However, at the end of his life, remnants of cruelty and brutality of indenture caught up with him. His overseer, boss, took him one day on his jeep to shoot some dogs that roamed the labor barracks. A dozen dogs were shot, and my father was required to carry the bleeding carcasses to the jeep to be disposed away. The sight of blood and the smell of death made my father very sick indeed, and he became incapable of working anymore and died shortly. I want to talk a little bit more about the creative side of the Girmitians that is ignored in history books and other accounts of indenture. The Girmitians were not all cringing and docile, slave-minded coolies. They had talents in music, reading, poetry, dancing, writing, and making art and artifacts. There were a few that regarded the experience in Fiji as an adventure in a newfound land. One of the Girmitians, Totaram Sanadhya, produced an autobiography and wrote a short story. So creativity was present even amidst the harsh conditions and impoverished life. There are very few first-hand accounts of Girmit, so Sanadhya's book is an important resource material for historians. Creativity is a God-given gift they often ignore, and still our education system doesn't have enough space for creativity. There is nothing in our curriculum for the education of the imagination. 4 years ago, the ex-parliamentarian Mr. Harish Sharma came to me with a batch of manuscript that was his father's poetry. Chandra Pratap Sharma was a poet from Saweni, not Saweni, and between plowing and planting, he sat under a tree and wrote poems in the manner of the romantic poets. He turned some of the poems into music and he sang the poems. He was writing his poems in the 1930s and 1940s. We published the poem in an attractive looking book. Some people in Fiji and the diaspora still remember the poems and the songs Chandra Pratap Sharma sang. It's a tragic fact that the younger generation will not know Chandra Pratap Sharma's poetry simply because they cannot read the Devanagari script. Closed will also be the great literature that the Girmitians brought with them, particularly Tulsidasa's Ramcharitramanas, that spiritually sustained the indentured laborers. Closed will be also Sanadhya's autobiography and the short story. And closed will be the literature in Hindi that is coming out now, like my own novel Doka Puran. One of the enduring gifts of Tulsidasa's Ramcharitramanas and the Girmitians was a new language that had been created in Fiji Hindi. And the younger generation that is turning its back on their mother tongue is rejecting the most important heritage that Girmit has given us, our language. It is unforgivable that young generation are abandoning Hindi and the literature associated with it. I'm grateful to Mr. Hriday Sharma and Dr. Satish Rai, who initiated this Girmit Mela, that allowed me to say these things. Unforgivable is also the fact that the young generation has very little knowledge of Girmit and no sense of history. We have just come out of marking examination scripts at FNU, and I was hugely appalled to read a final year student script that said, because of the military coups in Fiji, the government had to cede Fiji to Great Britain. And that is from a student who will become a school teacher and a citizen of our democratic nation. Democracy depends on citizens who understand history. In our education system, history, literature, and our own languages are not given the central place they deserve. And parents themselves aren't too worried about their children who can't read and write in their mother tongue and don't know history and do not want to read books. I've often been asked in the taxis and buses and certain gatherings like this, will our country ever improve? What they want to hear is what the government is going to do for them, not realizing improvement and progress ought to begin from them. Know your language, know your history, and read books. I have heard that the government is thinking of reviewing the education system. We would like to hope that the matters I have raised are featured prominently in the agenda. We also need to review our understanding of Girmit. Historians have given a very negative and depressing picture of Girmit. Without underplaying the injustice and the cruelty of the system, we can also stress the creative side of Girmit, not only in terms of art and artifact, but also forging a new life out of virtually nothing. That is the most supreme form of creativity, when you engage in building a country. Some of us who are here also began from nothing and recreated ourselves. In that process, others have played a significant role. And here I want to speak about the role of Itokais. And it is at the very moment the ship Leonidas left Calcutta on March 3rd, 1879 with 522 indentured laborers. There were 5 Itokais on board the ship who spoke fluent Hindi. What they told the indentured laborers, we will never know. It is left to our imagination, and in my imagination, I can see the Itokais telling the indentured laborers about all the good things in the homeland, the beauty of the islands, the abundance of food, and the possibility of a good life. A little later, another ship, Syria, struck the reef at Nasalai in 1884. The Nasalai villagers went in their canoes to rescue those on board, saved many lives, and buried the dead. 56 laborers lost their lives in that incident. The incident is loaded with symbolic meaning and demonstrated again the involvement of Itokays in the indenture history. When my father ran away to Rotuma, we can assume the hospitality he had received in Rotuma. He came back singing Rotuman songs. And there are stories of many runaway indentured laborers who found refuge in Itokay villages. That story is yet to be written. The drift of what I want to say is that Girmit was never a story of Indians alone. At every stage, Itokays played a significant role. And the most important role they played in sharing these beautiful islands with the migrants. And it is this country which gave the opportunity to the son of an indentured Indian to become a writer and a professor at a university. It doesn't happen swiftly like that in any other country in the world. In talking about Girmit, I wish to pay homage to our homeland Fiji. It is Fiji, not the Girmitians, that's the protagonist of the indenture history. Wherever we go in the world, we always gravitate towards Fiji. And finally, let's pay homage to the Girmitians, and God bless Fiji. Thank you very much.